Hello, MelchorMoore.com here today with Melissa Jaffe, entertainment lawyer. Um, I found Melissa and we decided to do this video kind of for emerging artists that get their first licensing deal, maybe an album cover, a book cover, something, and they decide they need an attorney. So they call Melissa, and Melissa, what would you expect an artist to be able to answer the first time that they call you?
Yeah, so if you're going to get into any kind of transaction with somebody else, I highly recommend you work with an attorney. You wouldn't hang your work without proper lighting, or if you're going to go into a gallery. It's really important to make sure that you have somebody that looks over what you have. So the most important things you need to know if you're going to enter into a licensing agreement, number one, who are the parties? You need to know how you're holding your own assets. If there's an IP holding company, if you have a business, or if you're just holding it personally, that does matter. If a lot of artists are doing a side gig, right? A side hustle while you're building your business. And you don't necessarily want to risk all of your income, your savings, inheritance, stuff like that. So the first thing is, who are the parties? If you get the parties wrong, that could nullify your entire agreement. We're outside right now. We met up kind of quickly on the fly, and so if this is hard to hear, we can make another one.
Maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again. The other thing that you need to know is, what are you licensing? So with copyright, we all know that there are derivative works, and especially as a painter or a photographer, you have the initial image, and if it's just a straight sale, that's one thing, but if you're creating prints or other derivative works, any kind of other, a coffee mug, you can really, at this point, embed your image onto almost anything. And so what is it? And then in licenses, you need to know the scope of the work. And scope is going to be determined by a couple of factors, right? There's going to be a limitation on time, so temporal, 1 year, 3 years, in perpetuity, forever and ever and ever. Right, and what media? So is it print? Is it electronic? Is this going to be for digital distribution? Those are kinds of things that you need to think through, so that when you do have your license, it's something that's going to support you moving forward. Oftentimes with licenses, you want to have a transaction, and then the time is the key, right? So it's over time, it will build. If it's starting to generate, then you want to continue the license. If not, then you may want to terminate the license. So thinking those kinds of things through, just the practicalities. How is this going to work for you? And then converting that over into legal language to support that.
Would you expect somebody to come to you with an agreement already drafted from the other party, or?
Sometimes. Sometimes people have that in publishing agreements. If there is already a licensing arm like Getty or some sort of third party, then there's only a few things that you can change in those agreements. But it's also good to go through it with an attorney, because you need to know what you're doing. It doesn't do you any good if you sign an agreement with Getty Images and then you breach that agreement. Getty's pretty famous right now for coming after all sorts of people.
Well, I can't think.
What else? The people usually come to me and they just say, how much is this worth? And I think value is another really important topic to hit, because value is completely subjective. So it depends on what you feel it's worth. What I find with artists, almost uniformly, is that artists undervalue their work.
Are you talking about like distribution or the image itself?
Whenever somebody comes to me, they say, how much should I charge for this? So that's a good question. You have products and you have services. Or who's doing what? Again, who are the parties, sometimes I just take a piece of paper and I draw a line down, and I get very, very clear who are the parties and think through every little piece of who is doing what for whom and what is the value exchange. And so licenses are so much fun for me. I love them. That's my favorite part because there's no boilerplate. You really have to think through and strategize, what do you want to do with this piece and how is it going to help you move forward? And we were talking earlier, sometimes value is not just financial. Sometimes you can get value by social media hits, right? If somebody has a social media distribution, maybe that's something that you want to include if money isn't available at the moment. So trying to think like who are the two parties, what are their actual assets, financial and non-financial, and how can you make a beneficial arrangement?
Well, that's
that's a wrap.
I think that's great. That's a wrap. Well, thank you for meeting with me and Melissa Jaffe, and I hope you liked it.
If anyone wants more information, my website is nbjaffelaw.com, and I also have a whole other business specifically for artists. It's called Blissness School, BLISSNESS School, and that's kind of like a mini business school that's broken down and really easy to understand.
And I think you're doing a webinar on Sunday. Is that open
Sunday,
to everybody?
The 14th. Yeah, come on. It's catered to musicians, and we're partnering with Music Portland. But we'll do more.
Excellent.
Maybe we'll do more. We'll see.
Yeah.